Hi Dinnerbone, Notch, Jeb, Grum, and the rest of the Mojang team. My name is Matt, and I also have my YouTube channel of Sin Survival. And I had a good idea, or I had an idea about jousting. I don't know if I'm the first person to come up or suggest this, but it's definitely something I think would enhance the multiplayer experience. Um, I think it should be included, and I have a few ideas if it was implemented about how it should work. So first off, in terms of how I've been thinking about this, in terms of a layout for an event, so it'd be like a tournament style knockout matches until one person is left the victor, requiring a minimum of two people, and increasing in factors of two, so 2, 4, 8, 16. So work its way down from that. And the tournament could either have an entry fee, so a gold block or something like that, or it could have a winning prize offered by the tournament organizer. Obviously, this isn't something that's going to be written in the code; it's just the way it would work. Also, natural regeneration should be turned off, or players should just have less than 7 hunger bars to solve that problem. And then each match would consist of 3 rounds where the player has one attempt in each round to score points while making a pass of their opponent. In order to score, there are 4 possibilities to score and ultimately win a jousting match. The first one is to break a lance on your opponent's body, and this would yield 1 point. And then the second one would be to break a lance on your opponent's head, and that would yield 2 points. Though this should only be contemplated if the body and head hitboxes are separate. Else, there should be it should be just maybe a chance for critical strikes if you can't do it. If you just get a hit on the player, then and break lance on the player, then there might be a chance of getting a hit critical strike. I'll talk about damage a little bit later when I come on to lances. Upon the successful breaking of a lance on your opponent, you may have a chance to dismount your opponent, and when you dismount your opponent, this would yield 3 points, as well as any other points you would have received from breaking a lance. So either you get an extra point for breaking it on the body, or you get 2 extra points for breaking the lance on their head, again if it's possible. And the final one is if you kill your opponent during the match with a lance, the death of your opponent would yield victory of the match to the player who killed them, obviously, as well as the spoils of the opponent. So I'm thinking like this could be a combination of the opponent's horse, the horse armor, saddle, or inventory. So it doesn't have to be all of them, doesn't have to be any of them. It would be set out as in the tournament when you start the tournament. And then I've sort of thought about in the event that both players are killed during the match. Both players are killed in the same round. Neither player will receive the spoils of the opponent, but the winner of the match will be the one who has the most points. And then if both players have equal points, then this will be a sudden death round or rounds, and they will be completed until a time where either one player has more points or it kills the other opponent. And that can be done through any of the 4 scoring techniques there, and just have to distinguish themselves from the other players. Now that's all I have on scoring and the sort of layout of the event. And now I think a new weapon that we should include, or a new item in game, would be lances, and this would only be usable on players to avoid sort of being exploited on mobs and anything else. I think, yeah. So it should have a cooldown of a quarter of a second to half a second, and so it makes it non-spammable. So when you're riding a pass, you can't just spam the button. You have to actually try to click it on the player and get the hit. There should be 4 types of lances, I think. A wooden one, which would be crafted with a wooden plank, a stick, and a wooden plank in a diagonal fashion, starting in the top right or starting in the bottom left, either way, and just going diagonally across the crafting board. And it would do 2 hearts worth of damage. Take note that this is only for this is unarmored people, so it will be a bit bigger when when it's not there. So we have and then you can have like an iron lance, which would be crafted the same, except you'd have an iron ingot in the top left or top left corner instead of a wood plank, and then gold would be the same, but with a gold ingot, stick, and then a wooden plank, and then you could have a diamond lance. This would be crafted with a diamond, a stick, and a wooden plank, and it would do up to 8 hearts of damage. So you can see there's a good range, obviously, and the better thing you could be using is a diamond, so it sort of follows the same rules as tools already within the game. So yeah, and then the damage that you would do depends on the speed that you're traveling. So so walking or sprinting, against another player has like a 0.25% modifier on damage. So whatever the damage was, you'd only do a quarter of it. So if you had a wooden lance equipped and you were walking or sprinting or running, you would only do half a heart worth of damage to your opponent. So I think it sort of removes the ability to kill opponents with just walking around with a lance, because I think it's less feasible. And then you sort of get the real damage when you get up to riding a horse, because that's where it is. So horses, have a speed, I'm sure you know, but between 7 and 11, and the idea would be that when you're riding a horse at 7 blocks a second, or a horse that has a speed of 7 blocks a second, you have a base modifier of damage of 1, so it's just the normal damage, and then it works its way up in increments of 0.25 from 1 to 11, so it would end up that an 11 block a second horse would have a 2 times damage modifier. So a diamond lance on a 11 block a second horse would give you 16 hearts worth of damage. This will also be affected by armor, I'm sure, and yeah, so it shouldn't be too overpowered, I don't think, at least at the moment, but it always can be tweaked. So the other thing I was going to talk about was breaking lances. So when you register a hit on a player, there should be a possibility that the hit is a glancing hit, and if there is separate hit boxes, that each hit should be like a hit on the body maybe has a 15 to 20% chance, or 10 to 15% chance of glancing off the body, whereas if they get hit on the head, there might be a 20 to 25% or 25 to 30% chance of glancing off the head. And that's just an inbuilt into the lance. That's just a mechanic inbuilt to the lance. It's not like yeah, I don't know. I guess it could be configured as well, but I think that would be fine. And then the idea that I really had about this is so that when you break a lance, so when you're riding along, you have to break a lance. Your lance will break, and then you have to repair it. And this should be, and repairing a lance requires the use of an anvil and either one wood plank or maybe a stick. And using the mechanic that's already inbuilt in the anvils, you would have to, the cost of repairing a tool gets more expensive, or an item gets more expensive as you repair it over and over again. So therefore, there would come a time where you're repairing your wooden, or repairing any of your lances will become too expensive, and you have to build new ones. And I think this works well in terms of it's not a you can't have it forever. But I do think when you finish when you cannot repair it anymore, you should still keep it, and you may be able to put it in an item frame as a broken lance graphic, or even in the chest. You might be able to keep all these are lances that I've gone through in my tournament jousting career in Minecraft. I think that's everything in terms of lances, but the final thing I wanted to talk about today was enchants. So I think there's only two items that should get enchants, and I think there's 2 enchants that I want to add and maybe change one of the current existing enchants just to work on the lance. So I'll talk about the lance first. So I will talk about like sort of a precision or accuracy, maybe with 2 levels, and each level decreases the chance that your lance will have a glancing blow upon registering a hit upon your opponent. So it just makes it a bit harder. So it makes it less likely that you are going to have a glancing blow. So it sort of gives you a benefit for enchanting. Obviously, we can work out the fine details of that later if you'd like to do it. And then also on a lance, I'd like to have sort of like a knockback or punch, and each level increases the chance that you will dismount your opponent upon a successful lance break. So that sort of gives you a bit more added bonus, and definitely a good proc to get. That if you're dismounting your opponent, you're getting 3 points that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get. Now, so those are the 2 things I think could go on the lance, and the only other thing that I think would work or would be sort of useful in the game was be an enchant on a saddle, and this would be called maybe like steadfast or something, holding, and have maybe 1 to 4 levels, and each level decreases the chance that you will be dismounted by your opponent upon a successful lance break. So that way, you should have a little bit to counteract the being dismounted off the horse. So I think that's pretty cool. I don't think you really need anything else there. And then he goes, I think that's everything. I'd love to see this all implemented in game in vanilla Minecraft. Though, if there's any mod developers watching and they like this idea, please PM me on here on the forums, or also in on my YouTube channel, which is Sin Survival. But yeah, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you've had a chance to, and yeah, I hope to see this get implemented in the game.